on the side of the highway. I can't talk. Oh, keep it clean, my kids with me.
Thanks, Jen. Always good advice.
I'll try to stick with 5-letter words instead of 4.
There you go, Vernon.
Everyone, I think we have 7 members present. I see Lori, Jen, Vernon, Robin, Ty, and Christina, and myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7. Susan, that's a quorum, isn't that correct? Vernon is, are you satisfied that we can start, sir?
Yes.
Very good. Well, it's 6:33 and I'm happy to call the June 12th meeting of the Policing Advisory Commission to order. We have from some prior meetings, a number of the minutes of prior meetings to adopt. Susan, what is the first meeting that we should refer to? That would be, is that the April meeting?
I believe it's March.
March. Those minutes were circulated. Is there a motion regarding the minutes of the March meeting?
Move the minutes subject to any corrections.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Ms. Branson. Thank you. Any discussion? Any need for corrections that anyone's identified on the March minutes?
No.
All those vote in favor, raise their hand so we can see an affirmative hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Christina, can you see? And I see Christina's hand came up. Very good. Are any opposition? Any abstentions? We'll note, Jen will note that you're present, but we're unable to vote unless you wish otherwise. Motion carries. The next matter would be the April minutes. Is there a motion regarding the April minutes?
Move the minutes subject to any corrections.
It's been moved
A
by
second.
Sherry seconds. Are there any corrections that anyone wishes to make to the draft meeting as proposed, minutes as proposed?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll note that technically Jen can't vote because she's present, but she's got both hands on the wheel. Motion carries. The next would be then the first May meeting. Is that correct, Susan?
It's April. The actual May meeting was canceled and then
Of course.
special.
Right. And then we had a meeting on May 31st. So,
Right, and that's the one that'll probably warrant some discussion.
so I have there were 3 versions circulated. Version 3 incorporates some suggested corrections from the staff Councilmember Jawando and I had made some what I thought were further expansions to clarify some of the discussion that we had at the May 31st meeting. So that's been identified as version 3. If someone would someone like to introduce perhaps a motion that be our version for the basis of our discussion, or is there another version that someone wishes to introduce?
Mr. Chair, I'll move version 3.
Thank you. Thank you,
I'll
Vernon.
second that.
And it's been seconded by Robin. Okay. Are there then comments or corrections to the draft in version 3 of our May 31st minutes?
Let me ask if I could. I didn't really
Lori, you're
understand.
recognized.
I'm sorry.
Lori,
didn't
you're
really-
recognized.
Thank you. I didn't quite. I may have missed I know I missed a part of this meeting, so maybe this came up when I was not present. But it seems the notes seem to indicate that that there would be an addendum to the current bill that would call for a new commission. I got the impression that, maybe I'm wrong about that. I didn't know that that was actually something that she said she'd do.
And
I thought it was a separate item and not an addendum to the bill. I guess that's the part I didn't quite get.
Ms. Branson?
So what Councilmember Luedeke suggested was repeal and replace. The replacement would have been what I think we're calling an addendum, where she wanted to expand, she wanted to create some new committee that expanded
Yes.
jurisdiction. Okay, right. So I think you are accurate in that. Well, let me just finish the other thought first. The problem with the addendum was, as I pointed out, the replacement, I want to call it the replacement because it's the problem with the replacement is that we weren't presented with any language specifically, and we did request that. And the way the council works is that this replacement language would not be a part of this repeal bill.
Yes.
It would only come up later in a work session. And just so you know, generally, members of the public are not invited to testify at work sessions. I mean, it has happened, but it's not the norm, So I think it would be fair to call it a
Amendment in the nature of a substitute?
no, I don't even want to call it that because we saw no written language. I would, maybe we can call it a proposed verbal amendment in the nature of a substitute. But I think we have to be very clear that we received no written language.
I was looking for the language addendum, Lori, in using my find feature, and I didn't find it in version 3.
Okay. Oh, boy. Let's see, in version 3 that I think I'm looking at, in a bulleted point that starts Councilmember Lidkey responded to PAC members' questions, blah, blah, blah. Right at the end, she also indicated that she intends to amend the bill to include a provision to establish the proposed new body. But, you
Right.
know, but I didn't get the impression that it was going to be part of the current bill. It was going to, you know, first she was going to have this bill passed that would wipe out the commission altogether. And then, you know, she says that she would amend the bill, but I certainly didn't get it. I didn't get it as a commitment. So maybe that's my point, that she talked about having a new commission, but I didn't get the impression from the conversation. And as I said, I missed part of the meeting, so I could have, you know, totally missed her intention there. So if others are agreeing with the language, then we should keep it.
I think it's fair to say, I'm looking at the sentence now, I kind of had to scroll through and figure out which sentence this was, because, you know, I'm like, you know, don't see all, you know, I need to put this, I need to move it up to more than 100%, obviously. But I think it would be fair to say that instead of the wording, okay, now I just lost it again, sorry. I'm playing between two. Okay, the current wording is, she also indicated that she intends to amend the bill to include a provision to establish a proposed new body. I assume that's the wording you're
Yes.
concerned with. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so, and I share your concern. So I would suggest she also indicated that she intends to amend the bill to include a provision to establish the proposed new body. However, she did not present language
To do so.
accomplishing that.
yeah, I like that.
Okay,
Did not present language to
which
accomplish.
would have accomplished the creation of a new body.
So I have added in my version that in version, she also indicated that she intends to amend the bill to include a provision to establish the proposed new body, but did not present language which would accomplish the creation of a new body.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would be good with that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Lori and Sherry. Anything else that anybody sees in the, or other comments?
That would be an amendment, right, to the minute?
That's correct. That would be
So
an
if we get a
amendment.
motion to amend,
What I want to do is to, Mr. Ricks, is to, if there are any other points, then we'll have a single motion to adopt it as amended and do it that way. It's sort of as we'll adopt sort of all the amendments, and then we would adopt them as amended. Is that okay? Are there any other suggestions or corrections or concerns? I don't see any hands. I don't see anyone seeking recognition. Would someone want to put the revised language in the form of simply a motion to adopt the language as revised?
move.
Okay,
Vernon moved, Lori second. The question then is on adopting the revised language. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those opposed? The motion carries. Question now is on the adopting the minutes as amended. All those in favor, raise their hand.
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are those opposed? The motion carries. That takes care of those matters. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. Now we go to the question of a brief discussion of responding to the there is a hearing tomorrow, and I have sent to you very late this evening a email of a draft statement. I'm not yet happy with it. I think it's still probably a little long, but it attempts to convey what we said. I also thought that sort of about this last 2/3 of the email that I had sent to Councilmember Lutke on May 25th might be useful, where sort of beginning with the language talking about being sympathetic to the desire to avoid public confusion, but then noting the significant differences in the responsibilities between the Police Accountability Board, as explained on the county's website, and the Policing Advisory Commission, and that to argue that our role is quite distinct from the role of the PAB, and noting that in our county's long tradition of oversight, citizen oversight of the affairs of the county government, there is very frequent overlap and collaboration between various boards and commissions on many matters. I gave the example, it was Sherry sort of pointed it to me. You have, with respect to alcohol, the Board of License Commissioners that regulates the alcohol establishments and issues licenses, and that there's actually an Alcohol Beverage Advisory Board, and there's an Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Advisory Council. That there are 3 different citizen bodies with the title, with the word alcohol, and that while there might be some concern about confusion, no one has proposed that we abolish them in their different important roles in providing oversight of one aspect of the county government. So I was thinking perhaps include sort of making that sort of maybe the conclusion of a statement. I have to make the oral statement is limited to 3 minutes, so I'm going to be not reading my statement. So are there questions or suggestions or comments or on at any level on sort of how we should be responding? I thank you all for your confidence and your indulgence in sort of how we're proceeding in this so far.
I would suggest, I have had an opportunity to kind of skim your most recent iteration. And I just want to be clear that, you know, what you say versus what you say during the testimony versus what we submit as a document, don't have to totally align, right? I mean, you know, you're going to cherry pick, no doubt about it. And so, I think you mentioned the inclusion of the email. I think you should in the statement. And you mentioned the alcohol thing, and I can tell you that the NAACP is going to include that in their statement. So if you want to include that too, that'll be fine. But when it comes to how you spend is it 2 or 3 minutes? I never know.
I'm told it's 3 minutes.
It's 3, okay, okay. How you spend your 3 minutes, I would really hope that you would spend it talking, you know, maybe just briefly saying, you know, there was some confusion. I did not mean to imply that I supported this. Let me tell you what we've been up to, and then really spend the time talking about what we've done. Because it seems to me that the sort of gravamen of her concern is that it's unnecessary because we haven't done anything. And I think highlighting what we have done and what we would like to do, as well as our diversity, because a geographic, socioeconomic, all that. I mean, we got diversity on this. Is probably probably makes the strongest case, along with the community involvement piece, that we're the PAB is not expected to. The PAC does have the role of being the community engagement part of all this. So community engagement, all the stuff we've done. Yeah, sorry for the confusion. Community engagement, all the stuff we've done, and all the stuff we'd like to do. I think that that would be your 3 minutes right there.
Right.
I have a
Right.
question.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Thank you, Sherry. Vernon,
Yeah, you could, in fact, give a summary in 3 minutes, but tell them that you have sent a written comments that
oh, yes,
extend, the verbal conversation.
yes, certainly. Thank you, Vernon.
That way you've gotten 2 times with, you have the extended version of the written comments, and you've done a quick summary.
Yes. Yeah, I would, I want to certainly make the point that I believe we have sent 8 reports on pending legislation that the council asked for when bills were referred to us. That we had 2 public hearings, but on our own initiation, we had a hearing inviting the public to testify about drug enforcement. We had a hearing on traffic enforcement. Our team put together a very, very detailed report on traffic enforcement. We've been looking at body-worn cameras. We've been looking at virtual reality training for our officers. We had conversations regarding how the challenge of preventing recruitment by white supremacists of police officers. We had a briefing on that. Before the PAB was created, we had a number of conversations with the Internal Affairs Bureau and and looked in depth at how the disciplinary process worked. I'm trying to think what I know I'm leaving some things out. Sherry.
I think I think what's not included, maybe I'm missing it, is the extensive work that's been done with people with disabilities and people with mental health challenges, because I think we've had a few sessions on that also.
Yes. Thank you, Sherry. And Jen, I apologize for you're always so modest about all the work that you do in this area, wearing your hat as a member of this commission. And I'm hesitant how much credit the commission should take for the work that you do wearing the hat of the commission in this regard. But thank you, Sherry. I will certainly discuss that. Perhaps I can get more, go back to some of our minutes, or maybe staff can help me and we can pull out some of the highlights of some of that that's been discussed in our meetings.
Eric.
Any other suggestions?
Eric, also you mentioned, I think I saw in there where you mentioned that that a requirement is for the committee to go through the Citizens Academy. And I would emphasize that we spent, what was it, 8 weeks going through there, training and
Thank you, Vernon. Thank you. Yes, and which is that's an important point to distinguish from the training that the members of the PAB get from the State Police Standards and Training Commission, which has a statewide disciplinary focus and is not related to the operations of the Montgomery County Police Department, which is what the Citizens Academy does so comprehensively. You know, a big contrast is that our requirement, as far as the training goes, is a very, very detailed exposure to so many of the aspects of the way in which the Montgomery County Police Department actually operates. And that's not a feature of the.
we did it during the COVID.
We did do it many of us did it during COVID. That's correct. And then COVID's not really over, but you know, thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. Are there other, you know, the other items and arguments points that folks want to make sure that I address, because this is very helpful to me. Nazifa.
Hi, Eric. I believe Christina made a comment on the chat. I don't know if you could all address that.
I'm sorry. 18 reports. No, I think we did a total of 8 reports on legislation was my count in a summary that Logan had prepared. I certainly wasn't, it wasn't 18.
The only thing that that I hope you just throw in here somewhere is that all members of the PAC are volunteers. We
Yes.
cost the county nothing. We are, you know, so that I think that's given the amount of time that we're expected to spend doing this work, we are volunteers.
We haven't even cost them a bottle of water.
No, because we haven't been able to meet in person, so we haven't even literally cost them a bottle of water.
Those things are true. It is also true that the participation of Captain Flynn, of Sergeant Brewer, of Susan, those are significant. Those are real costs to the county as well. Our staff support is not free. And
but that's true on all these boards and commissions, that there's a staffer who is assigned to the board and commission, and on some of them, yes, there may be people who serve in the executive branch who also have a role to play, so to speak, and that's that kind of goes with the package. When the council creates these boards and commissions, it is understood that there will have to be some staffing, but that's not, they're not paying us, and we're going to talk about staffing. There are other boards and commissions that have far more extensive staffing than we do.
right, Sherry, I don't think we're disagreeing. I want that. I mean, we're not wholly free. If we didn't exist, then the hours that Sergeant Brewer and Captain Flynn and that Susan engage in supporting us would be spent on other activities. We're not cost-free, but we're certainly not, we're relatively speaking if one considers in the overall context of the annual budget for the police department, the several $1,000s in staff time that is easily allocated to this is cost effective, as Captain Flynn observes in the chat. Thank you.
If I could add, I mean, obviously you're going to make it very.
Lori's recognized.
I'm
And then,
sorry.
and then Chris, I see Christina's hand. And
Oh, sorry.
Christina's hand and then Lori. Christina?
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. I was just gonna say that I believe part of Chairwoman's argument was, although we are volunteer commissioners, that in turn, she translated that to mean that maybe our commitment was in question. And that is why deliverables aren't being produced in her perspective. So in mentioning that we're volunteers, if I think it would be a good idea to balance that, to clarify and validate, but we are committed in terms, I don't want to leave space there for an argument back. I'd rather proactively state that we're committed to the work.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Christina. Excellent. Excellent. Lori and then Christy.
Thank you. Obviously you're going to make the point that that we have provided all these products that would not be provided, that would not be work that would be done by the PAB. But I wonder if it's worth also pointing out that we've also provided analytic information and other information that the police department also didn't have. And so we were in fact providing analysis of information to the police department that in fact no one was producing before. So it's not like we were twiddling our thumbs. It seems like some of this was filling in space of work that should be done.
But I agree, Lori, if you could bullet those and send those to me, that would be very helpful, the ones that you're thinking of specifically, so I
Sure.
can reference them, because you express it very, very well. Christy, and then I'll go back to Christina, whose hand is up again.
Yeah, and I apologize for being late and for missing the last meeting, which I was able to watch the whole recording. So thank you so much for uploading that very quickly after the meeting. I had a question for Susan actually about the difference between this committee and some of the other county-run boards, committees, and commissions, because this committee had a different, application process and selection process than any of the other county committees that are in statute that I've interacted with. And it's my understanding that this doesn't really count as a county board, committee, and commission. It's not being run by their boards, committees, and commission office. And our sole job is supposed to be to advise the council, which puts us in a different, we're talking about these things as if they're one, but they're not. It's a different type of committee under different, legislation or regulations.
Thank you.
I think there's a couple of distinctions there right now. There are several boards, committees, and commissions that the council manages, like the Charter Review Commission. There is a unique piece within the Policing Advisory Commission legislation for a different type of appointment process that I have not seen on any other board, committee, or commission. As the staffer for you, I do work through the executive's office for boards, committees, and commissions. I submit all of your public meetings to their BCC Trumba calendar. Since I cannot control that because it's an executive function, I also make sure everything's posted to the council website. So it's something I can research for you more and get back to the entire committee on if you want me to provide some distinctions between council created commissions and other bodies like that versus the executive ones.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I mean, especially if, she was talking about proposing something else, which we haven't seen any other sort of proposal. I think it would be really helpful to clarify, who do we report to? Who are we, under, and like what process? Because it seemed to be a whole different kind of thing that was unique.
Thank you, Christy. Good, very good points. It, of course, also then potentially highlights that the council, as our primary client, so to speak, may feel that we have not been as effective in communicating to them. In some sense, that's in some sense the heart of the complaint that Councilmember Lutke is making. That if we serve the council and she thinks we've disbanded, that is a serious charge that she's making in a certain sense.
Mr. Chair, but
Mr. Riggs.
in a sense, we've been on the job for 2 years, going almost to 3. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Been on the job 6 months. So she wasn't around. So, and half of the council, is changed. And keep in mind that they can't beat you up. They're not going to beat you up on the telephone or the thing tomorrow. Just throw it at them. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Riggs. Are there other points or concerns that folks have at this point? I want, my plan is to go in person tomorrow, Mr. Riggs, and Ty has very graciously offered to come and be also present. And I'm going to, make sure that his presence is recognized. Robin.
Yeah, I guess my thought is that I wouldn't be too. I think you've more than adequately addressed the minimal amount of substance that the council member provided during her meeting with us. I wouldn't get too wrapped up in that. I would be pushing forward to explain in a very positive way. I would not be defensive about what we've done. We've done a lot of work. So I think I would really strongly just simply not engage with the councilwoman's what I see as rather wild assertions. They're clearly politically based in my view, and she's positioning herself in a particular part of the council. And we don't have to pay much attention to that. We just need to say what we did, say what we're planning to do, and say why we're important, and ignore the particular nonsense. That's my view.
Thank you, Robin. Christy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think like the most productive way, as Robin mentioned, is to just try to lay out what gap we would fill, even with the presence of the other board. Why we should exist, and if there need to be changes to our, I don't want to say charter, because a lot of these boards, committees, and commissions don't have a charter. If there needs to be changes to our guiding legislation and any regulations that are required to implement that, then that's what they should be focusing on and filling those gaps, because there is a gap, and the gap is some of the broader public safety related issues that she mentioned herself in the meeting on the 31st. And I think that's where we have an advantage, just to be thinking about those things and to be acting on those things and to be having those conversations as we have, like with our our forum that we held that was on traffic. The other board is not doing that sort of work. It's not on their radar, it's not on their agenda. And I say mental health, traffic, and some of these broader public safety issues is what we should be highlighting as areas where we have an advantage to be discussing.
Christy,
And-
that's very helpful again. Thank you.
I think, and maybe expanding the scope of our advice to not just the council, but to the council and the executive.
And I think that, we've written directly to the chief of police. I think that we have attempted to provide guidance in that way in a number of our communications. Thank you, Christy. Sherry Branson.
Yeah, so I agree with the advice not to be combative. Because although it is incredibly tempting, it is some temptation should be resisted. I mean, who knows whether there will be questions, but generally at these public hearings for stuff like this, there are not, there's sort of this unspoken agreement between the council members that they don't ask any questions. They just let people testify and keep it moving. If you look at the agenda, I think there are about 4 or 5 public hearings that are all scheduled at 1:30, right? So, and so, I'm thinking that there's probably, hopefully there's some unspoken agreement that, that questions will not, take up a bunch of time. And at this point, still, it looks like no one has signed on to her bill other than Sydney Katz. And so, the last thing you want is to be too combative and to make some people say, okay, well, I'm gonna sign on just to just because I don't like the way you acting. So, we don't, we don't want to draw fire, you don't want to draw fire.
I understand. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that encouragement. I will balance your advice and Vernon's advice on this.
And in case I didn't mention it, I can't remember if I said it or not, but I'll be there tomorrow too. I'll be wearing my NAACP hat.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Christina and then Ty.
Thank you. So I was just going to say, and not to beat this one too hard, but when it comes to these wild assertions, and I like calling them that, whoever said that first tonight, because they are very wild, to leave them on the table to just be watered. I think, and this is just paying the compliment forward, that Chairperson Eric has a craft with words and being able to get points across without marking himself. That's just my opinion from observations. With that, I think that I trust you, Eric, to be able to address those wild assertions in a way that they are acknowledged to be untrue, and the ones that are untrue, but not in a combative manner. So I don't necessarily agree, and I think it's important for me to say this out loud, that we should just not say anything on things when, if it's said that the commission has done nothing, that assertion being left on the table. Of course, we can combat that by listening to things we've done, but I guess my point is exactly what I've said. That it doesn't have to be combative, but I don't think it's also, you can defend yourself, and we should defend our work, is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Christina. I take that. I appreciate very much what you're saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ty?
Well, I think to sum everything up, I've been taking a few notes about what everyone has been saying. And obviously, the point is not to be there and be combative as much as it is to provide information and explanation as to how effective this commission has been. My role there is simply to show support for our chair that is testifying. I won't be speaking. I will only be providing information to him that I think is germane, him directly and not the council. So just as a show of support, I think everybody has the right attitude as to how we should proceed. Although I agree with what Christina just said, I don't believe that we should let certain questions that are asked go out in a void and not be responded to in an adequate way. One of those questions I think had to do with our response to the STEP Act. We had not given a response to STEP. And the other one was when we had to, unfortunately, because of your absence, Eric, and mine, we canceled our commission meeting recently. And so those two things that we should certainly not just leave out there dangling without providing adequate explanation.
That's a point.
Thank you, Ty. Sherry Branson.
So it might be helpful. I mean, I guess we all took different points of her discussion differently. Frankly, the accusation that I found most disturbing was her saying that there had been a lot of churn in our membership. You know, I don't know if our membership is different than anybody else's as far as people leaving because they, you know, we've had a few people leave because they no longer live in the county. You know, can't be on the commission if you don't live in the county. You know, we've had a few people, and because we have had such really qualified people, we have had a few people leave because their work commitments, they were, you know, honest enough to understand that their work commitments were increasing. And so they were not going to have the appropriate time. I don't think we've had, I didn't keep a count or anything, but I don't think we've had a lot of people leave. And so to that, I mean, no more than anything else I've ever been on. So, you know, and I appreciate, you know, responding in a constructive way. Okay, so, you know, to me, the language is, you know, the council member has raised concerns about turnover, and yes, we have had people who no longer live in Montgomery County and who have had to leave the commission because they're no longer eligible to serve. You know, we have had people who, you know, because of their work commitments are no longer feel comfortable trying to devote the amount of time it takes to serve. And so that is not a concern about, or that should not raise concerns. You know, that speaks to the quality of the people we have. I would, you know, I would say it like that.
Thank you, Sherry. That's excellent. Vernon.
And Cherie, we need to remind them that because of the expertise of one of our commission members in all subjects across the council because of her service, so that she left temporarily to provide service to the what's the name?
The planning board.
Planning board. And it was because of her expertise.
Vernon?
Somebody I know.
I mean, I think, but you know, if you wanted to use me as an example, I don't really want to be used as an example, but yeah, I left, but I came back. And I only left because I was told I had to leave.
I said
I was told
temporarily.
Sure.
if I could have stayed, I would have done both, but I was told I had to leave. And then as soon as I could, I came running home.
Sheree, thank you.
Good point.
What we have on our agenda as well this evening, what we're going to do about a report on the STEP Act. I fear that we don't have a draft of a report to evaluate but I see Robin's hand on this.
Yeah, I thought we had said that we were something to the effect that we were sympathetic to the objectives of the STEP Act and to address issues in traffic enforcement, but that we felt that our report a report showed that many of our conclusions overlapped with the bill as currently written, but that there were differences, and it would be appropriate for us simply to provide that report again as support for dealing with issues raised in the STEP Act without exactly endorsing it fully. I didn't really, that was kind of where I was coming out, that
Okay.
the STEP Act comes from the same problems that we identified. We identified a bunch of solutions. The STEP Act has similar but different solutions, and I think ours are better, but then I would, wouldn't I?
Thank you for bringing that up. Susan, I'm wondering if you could help us. As I understood the report, as most folks may know, that is posted on the website says it is a draft not for circulation, and it's dated, the 2021 date, I believe.
December, yeah.
And as I understood it, the reason that it could not be finalized was that the different graphs and figures did not meet the county standards for making the document suitable for a verbal reader, for a machine reading. And I attempted to go through that and provide what is called alt text. Do you know what the status is of being able to finalize the report so that it can be formatted and formally posted on our website as a completed document, not as something that says draft, not for circulation?
Let me check with our web person, who is the one who told me it does not meet ADA requirements. You do have a final version that was transmitted to the council, so it's a clean version without the provision, this is draft and not for circulation. So we have a clean version. Let me run it by her again and see what we can do. She had commented that a lot of the Excel graphs were like screenshots and not the actual Excel charts that have been embedded in the document. So I'll see if I can work with her if there's some way to add the alt text like you're discussing.
There might be a distinction also between stuff that's actually in the text and stuff that's in the appendix. The appendix has a bunch of charts, but they were not made using Excel at all. They come from a completely different place. If it is an issue to do with the appendix, we could simply take the appendix out, put a note in it explaining that the appendix can be found online at my website. I'm quite happy to put it up there and to make it available that way. That way it's not an official document. I'd also add one other thing.
Yes, Robin.
We did an update to this, which included the most recent traffic and accident data from Montgomery County, which in fact strongly supports the conclusions that we drew. That is that it shows that over the last 3 years, the number of traffic stops is down 70%. MCPD claimed always that traffic stops prevent accidents. However, accidents have fallen exactly in line with traffic stops. So I believe we should transmit that additional material or new conclusion. I don't quite know how you think we should do that, but that should go along with it to the council.
Also, I went through the entire appendix, Robin, and there is alt text for every one of
Oh, fabulous. Well done.
those
Thank you.
charts. There isn't any graphic. There isn't any graphic that does not have alt text now, because I've made sure that it does.
Thank you so much, Eric. That's
So
really-
I want
really great.
to, I mean, it's an extremely important piece of work. And we put a lot of time into it. And it's we want to be able to have it on our website in a properly formatted manner, so that it doesn't look like it's a half-assed, incomplete thing that has been thrown up there. So with respect to the STEP Act, then it seems to me that we then maybe a letter that attempts to highlight to make the points that Robin made is necessary. I mean, there does need to be a communication to the council regarding that pending legislation. And we do need to tie the report that we've put together with the legislation in some
Would
way.
you like me to draft something?
Robin, if you would take the lead in drafting something like that, would really be helpful.
Sure.
How soon do you think we might be able to get something like that?
I would say next Monday. Is
That would be
too late?
splendid. Okay, because I'd spent time sort of since our May 31st meeting getting sort of on that traffic report. I was hopeful that for this council business with the expedited bill, we would be able to point to that as well as something which is something really quite current. So I think is there anything else we need to discuss regarding the STEP Act?
No, but
Shereen?
two things. First of all, I think it's Christy has lost her connection, and so Susan needs to let her back in. She just
Thank
sent
you.
a message. Okay, yeah,
Thank you. Sorry about that.
that's okay. And the STEP Act. I agree that all we need to do is a simple letter transmitting the report, saying that the report, that the STEP Act is in accord with many of the findings of the report. And we urge the council's serious consideration of the STEP Act.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I would,
Is everybody else sort of the phrase serious consideration of the STEP Act? Is
Well,
that sufficient?
I had concerns on the STEP Act, and I'd like to see what it is that we're going to transmit,
Sure.
Grave concern.
There were, I think, a number of us who had reservations about some of the offenses that would be sort of barred from enforcement. And I know that we had talked briefly about the question of not seeking consent for a search, if I'm phrasing that correctly. Ty, I see your hand.
Yes, when you mention consent searches, I think when we had the councilman Yawando before us, that was one of the issues that he spoke about, possibly changing the language on. And I had a problem with that because in my work, I use consent searches, and I know that sometimes they can be manipulative depending on how the question is posed. In other words, a police officer may ask a citizen, may I search your car, which is more specific than saying something like, you don't mind if I search your car, which is sort of a different way of soliciting the response that the officer wants in order to be able to conduct a search. I don't know that it's a tool that I would want completely removed and have, in essence, the county substituting itself in place of the citizen to answer that question. I would more so be in favor of the language itself being adjusted, and so that it's more definitive that the citizen has to give their
agree.
consent for the search. The other issue, I think, was the tinted windows of vehicles that put officers in danger. I would
Mhm.
certainly not be for that. They do need to be able to do their job and do it effectively. And that's one of the things that really not only puts the officer at risk, but it puts the public at risk because of the possible response
Yeah.
from the officer. So those were two issues that I had.
Ty, thanks. Robin, would you be able to include those in the
Sure.
letter that you're working on?
Sure, and I remember also Vernon raising questions about safety and stops, and I understand that, and I'll try and make sure that Vernon, your concerns are in there too. You know, we don't, I mean, I think when we've discussed this issue, we've discussed it in ways that doesn't 100% overlap with the bill. So we need to reflect that.
Thank you. Anything else on the STEP Act? Are folks comfortable with where we're leaving it at this point?
Yes.
Okay, good. Christina, we would you be comfortable, or do you feel prepared sort of at this point to share some of what you've been researching regarding body worn camera policy?
I am not prepared to do that. I'm sorry, my brain is a bit fried today.
Okay,
I was not prepared to do that. I won't do it justice. No.
fine, of course. And I don't mean to, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Oh, that's okay. I'm very honest.
What was the concern there?
The concern is that there's innate bias in the randomization of the body camera viewing that 2 officers are currently assigned to do under a pilot program in which we haven't necessarily seen, what is it that I'm looking for? The project plan. And that's something that we were asking to see because we weren't sure where they were going with it. And it just creates a lot of challenges down the road in terms of you have 2 people constantly looking at the same video cameras. They have the power to determine who is to escalate, who is being rewarded, and who is this is a strong word, but because I don't want to use punished. I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? That
Disciplined.
Discipline. Thank you. See, I told you it's fried. So those 2 individuals have the power to promote those camera video, the videos they see, for either receiving accommodations or to initiate disciplinary action. And the concern is, what about the ones they didn't choose to escalate? And you know, when you are the same eyes coming from the same lens, looking at the same set of things or over a period of time, it's just natural that biases are going to play a part. And how can we prevent that from being an issue down the line? So that's pretty much where we are.
Well, the reason I was asking the question,
Excuse me, Vernon, just 1 second. Robin's got his hand up, and then we want to hear you, Vernon. Robin?
Yeah, there were several things from our discussion of this. I think both Lori and I were extremely dubious, skeptical about the randomization process and the likelihood that we would be wasting resources doing this entire exercise. This raises a second question, and I think this came out of a conversation that I had with the council member staff last week. They said that one of the things that it would be extremely helpful to the council if we could send more frequent, shorter messages that focused on problems rather than solutions. That is so in this particular case, I think it's not really up to us to solve their body-worn camera issues. There are a lot of complex issues. I totally understand that. But we've identified a few that are actually troubling to us. And the council could do well to hear that we have doubts about the utility of the random inspection process altogether. We are speaking for the community. This is exactly the kind of thing we should be doing. We don't have to solve the problem. We can just raise it. And so, I would urge all of us to think about the areas we've been looking into to find places where we can raise legitimate concerns on behalf of the community. In a certain sense, while the traffic report, I stand behind the traffic report. I think it was good work. I'm very happy with it. I think it's been good for us to have something like that. But I think that's a bad model for what we should do. It's too much. It's too much work, and it's too solutions oriented. It would have been better in a way if we had raised more questions more quickly.
Thank you, Robin. That's very interesting insights. Is there somebody who would want to take on writing such a draft of such a letter, perhaps 1 page, 1.5 pages on that, on the methodology regarding the body-worn camera?
I want to, if I can, I'm sorry.
Lori, and then I saw Lori's hand, and then Ty. I'm sorry, Ty, your hand. You took your hand down. So Lori, and then I see Vernon, Christina, Cherie. Can we go that way? Lori, Vernon, Christina, Cherie, and then Ty.
Thank you. We had posed a series of very specific questions about how they were going to do the review of body camera footage. And, basically at that time they said, oh, we're just starting out. We don't have any plan yet. We haven't hired the people, et cetera, et cetera. But it seems like answering those questions would be something that they should be certainly willing to do now. I certainly have concerns about how strategically they're going about this process. And the other thing is that, this should all be a learning thing for them, not just a find rewards and punishment, but if you're reviewing all this footage, there should be things that you can teach other officers about how to handle problems. You can, apply things from one situation to another, et cetera, et cetera. So, if they're going to spend all this money reviewing this footage, they ought to get a lot of good stuff out of it. Their answer that they weren't ready and hadn't thought it through yet was a little unnerving. So they certainly should have that information now, I hope.
Thank you, Lori. Vernon.
I would like to then have somebody from the department to brief us before we send any kind of information, because I was involved in the body-worn camera situation from way early when it was even being thought of. And I had thought that there were processes in place of use, and they had been agreed upon by the union. I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that there were certain, that the body worn cameras, you know, would be viewable even by the chief, and that it was that they had some very good processes in place. So I would be more interested in finding out, because you know, to have some kind of briefing on what it is that what the process is now.
Thank you, Vernon. I know we did have at least one briefing. Christina?
Okay, yes, thank you. So I'm not remiss on the fact that I volunteered to produce a deliverable on this to you all with the things that I've outlined so far here in the chat. So I am still committed to doing that. And I work better with hard, fast deadlines. And so, first, I'm offering up my apologies for not having this delivered to you all at this meeting or the meeting prior to this. But a hard date, you know, and cohorts and friends here, please let me know what you think would be a good date for me to have something to you all to view. We do have a good working, you know, points here that we can flesh out that I've put out there. And if anyone has anything else, of course, can always email me or contact me, but I want to get something out to you tangible ASAP. I did volunteer for that, and I'm going to follow through on that.
Christina,
So, you
can I
all
ask
still
Christina a quick question?
Robin, okay.
Just a question. You know, we've heard from Vernon, and I kind of understand. I understand where he's coming from. Have we heard enough from the police department? So you're the point person. How do you feel about how much information you've gotten from MCPD about how the program is actually operating? Do you feel you need another briefing?
Yes, but I think it'll be most helpful for the department if they have something from us first as well. I think they provided as much information as they had. And if I'm able to be very transparent, I'm not sure they were even comfortable. The officer that was presenting to us, I'm sorry if I'm not sure if the department is even comfortable with where they are with the project itself to give us more information than they've already given. And I think it may be helpful to the department if we were into the council, if we provide them with sort of a guideline as to these are the alarming red flags that we're seeing with this, and does the benefit outweigh the risk? So I would like another briefing. I think we could use another briefing. I think we definitely need to see the project proposal. And if there was anything that would be useful before we provide a deliverable to them, it would be that project proposal that they have advised us is in existence.
So right now, we are scheduled to turn into pumpkins on July 31st. So any contributions that we want to make, we need, you know, our time frame is very short. We're now in the middle of June. We have one more meeting scheduled for July 10. Is that correct? So that would be, at this point, essentially our final meeting, unless the council so extends us or invites us to, and then there's the question of applying. So would folks want to meet on an interim basis, recognizing that it's summer and we've all got all of those kinds of things, to consider something that Christina could deliver to us earlier than that? Is that possible? I want to hear from Cherie and Robin, but I just want to know if I'm going in the right direction here about sort of timing.
That was what I was gonna suggest, actually. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Go
I
ahead
want to
then. I
talk about
recognize.
the
Cherie,
Huffer
Cherie,
bill.
go ahead.
I want to talk about the bill because that's sort of the guideline, if you will, right? But I also wanted to suggest this, because if Christina wanted to chat with one of us, or even, you know, in separate you can have separate conversations with each of us about what you're seeing, and that would not violate the quorum rule and would not violate the
Open meeting rule. That's
Open
correct.
Meeting Act, right? So I wanted to suggest that first of all, but I also wanted to indicate that I think it's a good idea to have a product that says, hey, look, this is what the law says. This is how it appears to be operationally. And based on these two things, this is where our concerns are.
Mhm.
And you know, it's a done deal. I mean, as far as transmission to the council is concerned. Because bottom line is, if they do decide to kill us off or let us die, then you know, this might be our swan song.
No
Would-
pressure.
Would Christina, would you be able to get us something, let's say by, let's say close of business the 21st of June? That's a Wednesday. It's a week from this coming Wednesday. I recognize that there's in between is the Juneteenth holiday weekend, which is a long weekend. Would that be enough time? Does that?
Why that particular time? What's behind the thinking there?
Well, my thinking was then we would be able to sort of perhaps have an interim meeting then after, with a chance to review that, and with a step back letter, perhaps you know, either the following week or you know that, or at least it would be that we'd be able to have our work on our paperwork so that we're able, you know, where we have things that are documents that can be adopted for certain, you know, no later than July 17. Lori's approving. Other thoughts, other folks, other
No,
opinions? I want.
I was not actually approving. I just wanted to offer assistance to Christina if she'd like some help on that.
Okay, thank you, Lori.
And ditto.
Okay,
Accepted.
very good. Robin, I see your hand, and Ty, you were going to be next, but you took
Yeah,
your
Ty,
hand down.
Ty gets to be next if he's.
Okay. Well, my question was for Robin. It was just a question of clarity. And that is, you were suggesting that it was too time consuming to not only do the research and collect data, analyze it, and then also provide solution. And so I just wanted to be clear that your position is that unless the council itself places something before this commission and request that we provide some kind of guidance in terms of a solution or something of that nature, we should stay clear of that.
You know, I think it's more that's, I mean, that's basically right. But I guess what I'm saying is I was kind of surprised, and then I thought about it a bit and thought, oh yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. That what the council is going to be in charge of writing the solutions in the end anyway. And they seem to feel that having us raise questions gave them sort of guidance and license in probing further. And, you know, honestly, that's necessary to in some cases for, you know, part of our job in a way is to help the council identify problems and concerns in the community with regard to the police department. And the way we can do that is by raising the concerns directly. We don't necessarily, I guess my point was just, we don't necessarily have to have a solution for every problem. You know, that some of these are complex and they would require a lot of an analysis and work to figure out what exactly the right solution is. And, you know, we're really not equipped to do that.
Okay, thank you, Robert.
And I guess my point, the point I was going to make was because I think Christina was thinking that this report should go to the police department, basically as these are our concerns. What do you got to say? And I think that's perfectly okay, but I think it's also good to copy the council on those kind of communications.
Thank you, Robin. So I think we've Christy.
I actually think that instead of sending it to the police department, it's actually more appropriate for us to send it to the council, because the council is the body that we're supposed to be advising.
That's fine.
Can I address that? So I don't think my impression was that it was going to go only to the department, but that the department, if the conversation felt like the department wanted something tangible to even kind of go further into detail as to what this program actually is. I don't know if I'm the only person that got the impression from the meeting that the information we were given was like detailed vague, right? Like a lot of words, but not really anything you can grasp, right? And so I felt like they needed for us to have validation in our concerns, for us to just say it's biased, so show us your project proposal. I felt like that's not enough for them to feel like, okay, yeah, they're going to show us, but it's also nice to collaborate and say, well, this is why we have those concerns. So then when they are presenting to us their project proposal, there's a comfort level knowing that we're just trying to collaborate, right? These are legitimate concerns. We're not coming for what you all have worked so hard on. We're just trying to make it so that it's a benefit for the community and for the department, right? And so I think that the idea was to provide the department with something tangible, because we did kind of bombard our guest speaker that day with our distaste for it. So I wanted to make it a lot more objective for them.
I think that sort of my sense is that it is probably best directed to the council and with a copy to the police, that our primary audience is the council, and that we, certainly, we have a responsibility not to keep the police out of the loop, that they should certainly be getting the communications about their affairs that we are sending to the council. And I think all of the detail and the questions and concerns are the concerns of the public that should go to the council as the ultimate oversight authority. And that when the police get the copy, they can mobilize quite rapidly to say, well, here are we've already either anticipated this or excellent points, and this is how we're going to address it, or here are the problems with what you're proposing. But I am of more of a sense that I think our responsibility really is as provided in the legislation to advise the council.
Well, I'm concerned that whether the council really wants our advice based on what they've been giving us lately.
Well, there are 11 members, and it may, we'll just have to sort of see how that plays out. But are there
some of them definitely
I'm noting the time, and I note that we should be beginning to contemplate how we're going to conclude our time together this evening. I want to ask if there's anyone who has not spoken that wants to be recognized. I want to invite Sergeant Brewer, Captain Flynn. We greatly appreciate your sitting in with us. If there are thoughts or observations about any of the topics that we've raised this evening, you think from any perspective, there's insight that you can share with us, that would be, of course, quite welcome.
Sergeant Brewer, did you want to go first?
No, I don't have anything at this time, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant.
I would just say that in regards to the body worn camera, we have been working behind the scenes to get the system up and running. We've been coordinating with the FOP, and currently our policy is being rewritten to accommodate some of the new plans. So what I did was I made some notes as far as some of the concerns that the PAC brought up, and I will go back and examine the policy in its draft form to ensure that we're addressing those concerns, or at least we're mindful of them. So I definitely appreciate the insight on that.
Thank you, Captain Flynn. That's very heartening. That's very gracious of you. Thank you.
So I'm just, you know, I obviously I wasn't in attendance at those meetings. I was probably somewhere else. But do we have a copy of the policy?
Yes, it was just posted in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cherie. Christina, I see your hand.
Okay, yes, I just wanted to say, Captain Flynn, thank you. And that would be something very good to illustrate when we present the effectiveness of PAC. Because to me, what just happened in this conversation and what Captain Flynn just provided is exactly why we exist. In the midst of rewriting a policy that we had concerns about a couple of months ago, what we have said in this meeting is going to be taken into a different room into consideration in the drafting of that policy. And that is why PAC exists. And so how else would this information get disseminated this way and this effective? So, I mean, this could be like case in point. I just wanted to throw that in there. And thank you, Captain Flynn, for taking our concerns seriously.
Absolutely.
Christina, thank you for a exquisitely timely point, observation about the interaction. That is very helpful and very helpful. It's 7:59. Are there others who had any other observations? Are there things that people thinking about that we should anticipate putting on our agenda for our next meeting that we haven't thought about?
Just have a question. Tomorrow, your testimony is at what time?
1:30 formally, along with a million other bills and individuals.
But 1:30 is when the hearing is to start.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it will be.
Anywhere. You could
It'll be at the
anywhere in
county
line.
council on the 3rd floor, and of course it'll be broadcast.
Right, okay. Try and watch it in broadcast.
Well, friends, thank you for all of your support and encouragement, for all of the excellent insights this evening and observations. It really has, I feel, as your chair, so tremendously encouraged and heartened by the ideas and the comments and the enthusiasm and the support that you all bring. It really is heartening. I'm hoping that the council hears us tomorrow and recognizes that we do bring value, that we are committed to serving the county and in providing valuable citizen oversight, and that we play a unique role. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn and make sure you carry your own bottle of water.
Second, I second that.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye, or raise your hand. We can It is a majority. The motion carried, we're adjourned. I want to thank Susan and Logan and Nazifa again, once again, for all your support.
Again.
And thank you, Eric.
Christy, your hand is up after we've adjourned.
I was just voting. I was just voting
Ah,
to adjourn.
Oh, okay, very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Good night. Thanks again.